My sister and I were raised here in Fairhaven and have spent most of our 60-plus years in this very house. This house is not under any known flight path. This house is approximately 20 miles from the Southern Vermont Regional Airport and 70 miles from the Burlington Air National Guard Base. Under no circumstances should we hear planes thundering over our roof, nor feel the walls shake to such an extent that framed photo collages have been known to fall to the floor. Pamela has a certain degree of aviation-based knowledge. I also have a certain degree of aviation-based knowledge. I understand flight paths, air corridors, the use of RNAV navigational systems, and so on. We are both trustworthy women. We only need one person to believe us. We only need one person to accept that a campaign of harassment has been perpetuated against us by the likes of the FAA, the United States Air Force, the Vermont State Police, and a number of private citizens. How to convince you? Pamela says, just look at the satellite photos. I admit I myself can't quite interpret the satellite photos as well as Pamela, but Pamela says, just look at the satellite photos taken of Fairhaven from 2009 to the present. You'll see the irregular flight patterns of these craft, the exceedingly low altitudes at which they fly. This is unacceptable. This is un-American. In early 2009, when I first called the regional airport to ask if air traffic control could please keep pilots from practicing stall maneuvers over our house, I was told no such maneuvers were being conducted in the area. I was told no such maneuvers had ever been conducted in the area. Further noise complaints were dismissed outright by Mr. Barry G. Gillis himself, FAA Certified Traffic Management Coordinator. I was told to stop calling altogether. All aircraft flying in and out of the airport comply with FAA noise mitigation standards. He was not above alerting the authorities should my complaints continue, etc. Let me be clear, we are the victims. Pamela and I are the victims here. The number of figure eights, inverted spins, snap whirls, dives, and climbs over our house only increased. One evening, a twin-engine helicopter appeared, though I might have had difficulty distinguishing its gray hull from the darkening sky, if it weren't for the whipping of its four-bladed rotor. Pamela had already gone to bed, exhausted by our trip to the dialysis center earlier that day, but soon came out to the living room where I stood at the sliding glass doors. Pamela suffers from late-stage kidney disease. Pamela also suffers from fibromyalgia, though said nothing of the muscle spasms or neck pain I knew were likely afflicting her at that moment. No, she simply studied the helicopter, determining it to be one of the Air National Guard's MH-60G Pavehawks. It remained hovering over our house for so long we eventually became accustomed to its whippings, and it was a while before either of us had noticed its departure. The next night I woke in a terror so severe I found myself instinctively scrambling out of bed to the floor in an attempt to search for safety. What sounded like the very splitting of the heavens above could be heard. The walls shook like never before. Photo collages were already strewn about, glass shattered, frames snapped. Once I finally got my wits about me, I found Pamela at the glass doors, a grim look on her face, back stooped by a sort of resignation. It seemed somehow she'd expected this. An F-16 Falcon had passed over our house, she explained, a jet designated to the 158th Fighter Wing of the Burlington Air National Guard Base. Not only is it downright bizarre for a jet of this sort to fly so low over a residential area so far from its station, but it's illegal also. Pamela says, just look at the satellite photos. Look at the satellite photos. Illegal is illegal. Hardly a day has passed in the ensuing years where a craft of one sort or another hasn't circumnavigated our house in a display of aeronautical cruelty and or subjugation. We are denied any attempt at peace during daytime, deliberately prevented from sleep at night. Any and all efforts to even briefly escape are sabotaged. A Cirrus SR-20 single-engine prop plane often trails us on our drive along Route 4 to the dialysis center, and will still be there many hours later, flitting over the building in an increasingly sinister series of figure eights. Our trip in 2013 to the Rare Gem and Mineral Show in Bennington was overseen by a UH-72 Lakota, hovering above Memorial Park for the majority of our visit. The canvas of the vendors' tents flapped incessantly in the turbulence of the copter's blades. At one point, an entire awning was made to collapse. metal poles folding in upon themselves, display case driven to the ground, pamphlets sucked forth from amid the wreckage to go flooding skyward, etc. When Aunt Debbie passed in 2017, an F-22 Raptor shot out of the sky above Evergreen Cemetery. Its sharp, silvery body looked as if it had been forged at that very instant, the screech of its velocity like that of some newly birthed demon. Earlier this year, the use of drones began. Pamela spotted the first one buzzing past the sliding glass doors, an unmanned device approximately 5 feet in width, with 4 propellers, and a 3-axis stabilized camera attached to its chassis. We're now being recorded 24/7, Pamela says. Pamela says the footage is likely being routed directly to NSA headquarters, along with our phone records, the content of emails, our internet search history, and so on. If I close the curtains, I can still detect the hum of propellers outside. Often, I'll hear the sound of black metallic bodies clinking against windows. We've been buzzed by these things during the short walks Dr. Jacobson instructed Pamela to take in order to maintain healthy blood circulation. We've been buzzed out on the deck. We've been buzzed in the jacuzzi purchased specifically for hydrotherapeutic purposes. Yes, we've been buzzed in the jacuzzi. I tried contacting Daniel Elwell, acting administrator of the FAA. He has yet to reply. I've tried contacting Lieutenant Richard Binning of the Vermont State Police. No reply. I've tried contacting Colonel David A. Smith, commander of the Vermont Air National Guard's 158th Fighter Wing. No reply. Governor Phil Scott? No reply. Attorney General T.J. Donovan? No reply. Not a single one of these men has even bothered to acknowledge my complaints, much less respond to them. I must emphasize again that these men are men. They are almost without exception all men. Pamela isn't much surprised by this fact. It doesn't much surprise me either. Why should it? More and more women are coming forward every day with increasingly dreadful accounts of exploitation at the hands of politicians, Hollywood executives, musicians, online game developers, and so on. What's happening to us really isn't so different. Powerful, inscrutable men are attempting to oppress us, control us, hold sway over us from above. The details are not as salacious as recent accounts of sexual misconduct, but a campaign of harassment is a campaign of harassment nonetheless. All we need is for one person to look at the satellite photos. All we need is for one person to believe us. Please say Vermont Teens Against Bullying won't fail us, as so many others have done. Please say Vermont Teens Against Bullying will stand up for us, and for what's right, and for what's just. I understand my request falls outside the purview of your commitment to ensure kindness and inclusion in local schools, but I must underscore once more that it's illegal to spy on, stalk, or harass anyone, anywhere. These men have made it very clear that they are more than willing to act above the law. These men understand advanced psychological torture tactics. These men understand a sustained campaign of harassment is necessary to destroy lives they have decided for one reason or another must not be allowed to continue. Neither myself nor Pamela have been permitted a full night's sleep in nearly a decade. My sister is driven to nausea from sheer stress and exhaustion nearly every day. I often also am nauseous. Pamela's condition has worsened to the point where her cognitive abilities have become impaired, and her feet are numb almost all the time. Do you or anyone else at Vermont Teens Against Bullying doubt that this is all related to our aerial abuse? Some may try to convince you hell is beneath the earth. I can tell you it is in fact just above our heads. People commit suicide every day from harassment far less egregious than that perpetuated against us. Lately, Pamela has been speaking of wanting to die. I want to die also. We look forward to your reply.